So welcome to the WEConnect International WEConnect Academy. This is part of our WEConnect Academy Live series where we bring some of the modules that you have access to through your WEConnect eNetwork profiles to you live so you can ask questions. I can't go through the entire module because it takes a little more than an hour, but I will go through some of the important parts, and I said you can always access this module later on when I will send out a link to the recording of it, and all of the modules that I presented during the WEConnect Academy Live are available at youtube.com/WEConnection. You also have access to these modules through your WEConnect International profiles, so you can view the parts that I'm going to skip or gloss over quickly fast. You'll be able to see those on your own time if you log into your profile. So I'm going to get started now. I have billed this as the fourth module because it's the fourth one I'm giving as part of this series, but this is actually module 7 in the WEConnect Academy. So if you are a self-registered business, you won't be able to access module 7, but certified businesses are able to access it. So that's one of the benefits of being certified. So before I do that, I want to mention that you all are muted. You're muted so we can cut back on some of the feedback throughout the session. But if you have questions, you do have the chat window available to you, and you can ask questions that way. So I'm going to bring up the slides, just taking a minute. Okay, let me try this. Try closing down some of my other applications. It seems to be using up a lot of energy to try and open this up. So let me try it. Okay, well, my screen seems to have frozen, so what I'm going to do is try and dial back in. So bear with me for 1 second. Very strange. Okay, well, okay. So here we're going to start with understanding procurement processes, which I mentioned is learning module 7. This is part of a series of 10 modules that Walmart provided support for, and as part of the WEConnect Academy Live, which I mentioned is available to you through your WEConnect eNetwork profile. The objective of this module is to help you understand corporate procurement processes and how best to follow them to ensure your business success. I should say that this is a broad overview of procurement processes in general. Each corporation or business, any company that you have, is going to have its own ways of doing business and procuring and buying. So you want to be cognizant of that. The best thing you can do to find out more about the procurement processes is to ask your contact at those places to help navigate you through those. But this is to give you an idea of just what's entailed once you get past that first connection stage. So a lot of the things we've talked about in the other modules, if you haven't had a chance to view them, I recommend taking a look at those because that really lays the groundwork for this part of this module. But I'll just go over a little, some of the things we covered in the preparing to engage. One is knowing your competition. 2 is knowing your customers. 3 is knowing how they purchase, and a lot of those things in terms of how you get that information is covered in modules 1, 2, and 3. Particularly knowing your customer, which we go over pretty in-depth in module 2, because in order to engage with them before you get to, okay, let's talk about sales, let's talk about how you buy, let's talk about when you buy, you really need to know if that customer or potential customer is a good fit for you. Does their mission align with your mission? Do their values align with your values? Are you in an industry and providing a service that they buy through their supplier diversity program or through women-owned businesses? These are things you want to know before you get to this stage. Once you've established a connection with the company, you can start to talk about when they purchase, what they're purchasing, particularly in your industry, and how much that they're purchasing. I think the other point that's important is the first bullet at the top, which is knowing your competition. So in order to do business with someone, you're either replacing a current supplier or potentially providing a new product or service. If you're replacing a current supplier, there can be challenges with that in terms of a long-term relationship already established. They may already be doing business with a women-owned business or a diverse supplier in this industry, and you want to find out what are the terms of that, what's the contract that's involved. It may be at that point, depending on how long that relationship is going, how long their current contract is in place, it may make sense to be a first-tier supplier. You want to supply to that supplier instead of going direct and trying to replace that supplier. You might be potentially providing an entirely new product or service. So in that case, you don't have to worry about the competition that's already in there. You do have to worry about actually explaining the value for buying what you're selling. That is going to take a longer time in terms of getting to the right decision makers and making the case for buying your product or service. But once you know all of those things, you are prepared for the next step. As you can see on the slide, the information is not always easily accessible. You can go to the corporate website, you can go to their press releases, and you can rely on your relationship with their supplier diversity team. And you can also look at any information that we have either on the WEConnect International website or through the corporate profiles that are on the e-network. So just as the women business owners have a profile on the e-network, so do our corporate members, and that can provide you some information about what they're buying and when. But the most important relationship that you have is your relationship with the supplier diversity team. I've stated this in some of the earlier modules, but I think it's worth repeating that the supplier diversity team is your advocate within the company that you want to do business with. So they might not be the ones who are buying what you're selling, and usually they're not the ones making the final decision, but they are going to be the ones that can provide you information and serve as your liaison to the rest of that team. They should be people that you can ask about the procurement processes and any questions that you have, and that is really their role. Some people see them as a gatekeeper. Some of the business owners position it that way. I prefer to see them as your advocate and your liaison, so that when they say, oh, the first thing you need to do is register on our website, well, if that's the first thing you need to do, then you want to do it right away so you can get to the next step. Showing them that you're listening to them and willing to follow their directions is a key first way of building that relationship. So like I said, we're not going to see everything. I'm going to skip a video here. This is from Marla Cott, who's a business owner in Canada, has been very successful leveraging her certification. So I recommend that you log in to the WEConnect Academy using your profile to view that. But what we are going to go over is the different keys of the procurement process. We're going to go through the need for the product or service, supplier identification and evaluation. We're going to touch on that, but not go through all of the different qualifications and certifications that are available to you. We're going to go through bidding, negotiation, supplier selection, purchase approval and award, integration and implementation, and how they manage and measure supplier performance. So we're going to go through all these things in details, but I think looking at these different steps, you can see that having a good connection, maybe at a matchmaking meeting or through a Meet the Member event, is just the beginning. The procurement process can take time, and the very end of the procurement process involves an evaluation of how you did. So you want to make sure that you're viewing this as a long-term relationship and that you're really just getting started once a company has demonstrated an interest in your product. So the way they demonstrate that interest is probably because they have a need for that product or service. Again, it might be a contract renewal, so they need this product or service and they're looking for new suppliers who can potentially provide it, or they've become interested in a new product or service that you're offering. The corporation is going to conduct research and analysis, and they're going to look at items like cost, availability, product quality and safety, intellectual property, multi-tier supplier sourcing practices, meaning are they going to have to buy this directly from you, or are they going to introduce you to one of the suppliers that are already supplying to them to start that relationship? You're going to look at sustainability and any social responsibility factors. That's also where your certification will come in. They may also look at local legislation, trade practices, and enforcement requirements. So once those are all identified, they will proceed to the strategic sourcing. So this is all a part of their strategic plan in looking at a vendor. As I said, the supplier diversity person might not be the decision maker. They might ask you a lot of questions. They might come back to you with a lot of questions once you've met with them. The reason for that is they're likely looking for a way to move you up to the next step in this strategic process. And so in the course of that, they're probably going to ask you a lot of questions about these things, the cost, the availability, et cetera. So if they're looking for suppliers, maybe if they haven't met you yet, if you haven't made this connection, how is the corporation going to find a company like yours? They're going to conduct a supplier search in several ways. The first one is their own database from their either vendor management system or their e-portal entries. So that's why I say if a company asks you to register on their website, it may be that there's not an opportunity available for you right at that moment. But what it does mean is that they're telling you when they do have an opportunity, that's the first place they're going to look. Walmart recently sent out an email to all of our certified WBEs asking them to join the Walmart Women-Owned Business Directory. And they did that because, yes, they're using the WEConnect International certification and our e-network, which is the most up-to-date way to find the businesses because we're certifying new businesses every day. But they also want to maintain a portal of existing suppliers and potential suppliers of their own that they can access when they have a need. So while it might seem like, oh, I have to register on all these sites, that's why the important processes at the beginning, which is narrowing down which of these companies you want to do business with, identifying which might be a good fit, then you can really narrow down, okay, these are the ones that I'm prepared to go through these lengthy procurement processes to do business with. So after their own vendor management system, they're also going to look at our third-party databases. So WEConnect International, WeBank, which is a U.S.-based organization that provides certification. They're going to conduct networking. So they might look through industry connections or existing distributors, and they're going to look through regional, national, and international organizations. The company you want to do business with might have a relationship with a local chamber of commerce or something like that. So there's a variety of different ways in. WeConnect International is certainly one of those ways, but you don't want to close off the other opportunities. The next step in that process will be a request for information, which may be followed by a request for quotation. So they might just ask you some basics about your company for a capability statement, or just a request for a quote. Here's the scope of work. Tell me how much money it's going to cost. they might have a more comprehensive supplier assessment process. And those are things you might want to ask if you get a request for information and provide that. One of your requests back might be, okay, what are the next steps in this process? One of the WEConnection tips that we have is keeping your profile up to date, not only in the e-portals of the corporations, but also in WEConnect International's e-network. The reason for that is you may have filled out your self-registration or certification as an application. So maybe in the past 6 months you've added a new service, or you have new marketing materials, or you can offer your services in a different language. These are all things you want to keep up to date. I would say about you should plan on updating your e-network profile twice a year, once when you renew and another time about 6 months from them, just to make sure that everything's current. Because this is the way that these corporations, not only is it the way that you present yourself to other women business owners, but it's the way our corporations search our network. Even if they're not searching the e-network themselves, they will often come to us to ask us, okay, can you look through the network to find a company that will provide legal services or that will provide IT consulting? And this is that's the first place we look, is at your profile to make sure that, to see if you meet the criteria they need. So that's different. The WEConnect e-network is different from the corporations and their individual supplier networks. So they are going to require substantial documentation. You may think that the certification itself requires substantial documentation, and it's good that you have all that in order, because the corporations will likely ask for a lot of that. It's essential for them to evaluate suppliers, and they want to know a lot about your company in terms of past performance, because that mitigates their risk in terms of using a new supplier. So who else did you supply to? What was your performance there, and what were the results? Now, they all have their own application processes, and you may have to complete a same or similar process for each customer. That's just part of the game. So that, again, that's why narrowing it down is important. And there's no guarantee that just going through any step in this process will result in business. Even if a company, Walmart is asking people to join their directory, it's not a guarantee of business with Walmart, but it does suggest that they want to get a lay of the land and maybe start to look at new products or services that they can get. So these are some of the things you should be prepared to provide. You provided them to WEConnect probably when you got certified. You want to also remember to mention your WEConnect International certifications in those portals, and any other business certifications you have. Like I said, we're not going to go through all the different possibilities. There's ISO, there's this fair trade certification, but you do want to make sure that as you have those, that you have those up to date in the different networks that you're entered into. So what are the kind of things that corporations are looking for? At this part in the process, they're looking for something that distinguishes you from, again, the current supplier or the other competitors that are offering your same service. So that's going to come in terms of cost savings and or a value add. If you can point to cost savings that you've offered other customers, that's a great way to differentiate yourself from other potential competitors. Maybe you have a specific customer focus or a specialization that they don't have. Perhaps your solution is innovative or uses a new technology that they can make use of. They want to see quality processes, any recognition or awards that you've received for your quality or your innovation. And they're going to look at references, strong financials, because, again, they don't want to take a risk that they're going to contract with you for something and then the company's going to go out of business. They're going to look at compliance and your readiness and capacity. So while they might be starting out just buying something locally, they want to see, okay, if we can grow with you, will you be able to provide this to our markets around the region or around the world? So of these things, I would say some are things that they're looking for in terms of your product and some that they're looking for in terms of your company and the relationship that they're building with you. So just because you can offer the cheapest, maybe the cheapest solution, or you can offer them cost savings, that doesn't mean that in the course of their whole relationship with you, that's going to be the most important thing that they're always looking for. They also want to see that you are compliant with rules and regulations, that there's sustainability there, that as they grow, you can grow with them. So those are all things that you want to keep in mind when you're filling out the RFI or the RFQ for these companies. So we're going to get a little bit into what the RFI is. We're not going to go through this in too much detail, but it's important to know the different ways that the corporations might contact you beyond a matchmaking meeting or a meet the buyer event to get information. One of these is a request for information. It's a pretty standard business process to get information about your capabilities. So it's going to include a list of products or services that they're requesting information on, and you should provide them pricing on those. They're going to use this for comparative purposes. So they're going to look for lower cost alternatives and cost reduction opportunities. This is typically the initial stage of a formal engagement, and they might use it in conjunction with a request for quotation, or RFQ, or a request for a larger proposal, which is an RFP. So the request for quotation is usually used when price is the main or only factor in comparing suppliers' quotes. So they might use this as a prior step to request for proposal, and it may include some personnel skills, so the skills that your company can offer, product description and specifications, quantities and volumes, delivery requirements, and terms and conditions. So you can see in here they're not really getting at the quality of the service, the innovation, and your value add. So that's something that you might provide later on down the road in the RFP. So the kind of things they're going to look at when they're vetting suppliers, again, this is different than what they're looking for in your product. Let's say they like your products, they like the price. This is sort of the next level of what they're going to go into to make sure that you are a good partner to them over the long term. Like I mentioned, doing the business or getting a positive response from one buyer is really just the start of this journey. And in creating a partnership with these companies that you want to be your clients, they're going to look at a bunch of different information. Some of that is your business historical credit, financial, biographical information. So who are you? When did you start the company? How long has it been established? Do you have lines of credit? And that kind of thing. They're going to look for quality assurance and compliance, for safety and workplace conditions, for economic viability. They're also going to see if there's any environmental stewardship there that they can promote through their own sustainability goals. Any diversity in supplier development, again, that's where your WEConnect International certification comes in, but if there's additional diversity recognition that you have, you want to put that in. If you have a very diverse workplace in terms of employees, that's something that would be of interest to a lot of the companies, particularly the ones that are WEConnect corporate members. They're going to look and see that you're compliant with regulations around human rights, that you look to manage your client's risk, and any news items about you. So those are things that, obviously everybody has the ability to search for different suppliers using their search engines. So you want to be prepared for a company to look that kind of stuff up. And you want to be prepared. Make sure you know about your appropriate commodity codes. So this is pretty much geared toward North America and then North American industry classification codes. However, it's also important for businesses located outside the U.S. because they might not be able to, if they want to slot you into an existing spot on their supply chain, they might have a certain commodity code that they're looking for. So you want to know how you fit into that. One really good tool for that is the UNSPSC codes. And if you look those up, you can find a list of a lot of different commodities and where you fit in. The importance of those is, unlike the NAICS codes or the North American codes, they're global. You also want to make sure you have your required licenses and certifications. So you want to make sure that you have your certification before you start to engage with a lot of the corporate members, because it may be that you don't hear anything from them for 6 months or a year, but then when they're ready to go, or they're ready to purchase your product or service, they might not be able to wait for the 90-day time frame for you to get certified and go through that process. So you want to make sure you have that in hand. Same with health, safety, and quality certifications and any environmental certifications you have. One of the certifications they go into is hazard analysis and critical control point system. We're just going to gloss over that, but basically that's part of your risk management with these companies. So you want to look into that. What do we do if anything goes wrong? It's less critical if you're offering, for example, coaching services or promotional products than if you're offering some sort of industrial service or manufacturing. But you still want to think about, okay, how can we manage this risk? So I'm going to skip over a lot of the commodity codes and the information here. Again, you can find that by logging into this module on the eNetwork. There's ISO standards, there's UPC and EAN codes, which identify your product to a consumer and would be important for our retail customers like Walmart. ISO standards, as I mentioned. Here's the hazard analysis and critical control points. So you want to think about those to reduce any risks you have in your supply chain. Again, food is another area where you really want to make sure that any risks to food safety are completely mitigated before you try and sell your food to a Sodexo or a Walmart, because those are things that they're going to want to see. So there's a lot more information on this. There's another expert insight, but I'm going to go down to the RFP process and bidding, negotiation, and supplier selection. So this is where you want to, where again, you might not have had the opportunity with the information or the quotation to really distinguish your company. So this is your opportunity to do so. Through the RFP process, they might conduct a site visit or audits, particularly if you have a factory or any off-site business locations. You're going to get into contract negotiation and then the supplier selection and notification. So we're going to go over the RFP. This is provided to potential suppliers, and what they are seeking is detailed business proposals on a specific product or service. So this brings in a formal evaluation and selection process. If you receive an RFP, you'll likely be competing against other companies, and they really want to look at, they want to bring an objectiveness to the process. So again, you may have had a great personal relationship with an individual at the company. When you get to the RFP process, what that tells you is other stakeholders in the company beyond the person you have a personal relationship with are going to be looking at this. So this is where you really want to formalize your offering. You can read the RFP to get an idea of the client's strategy and their short or long-term business objectives, if that's in there. It may dictate the exact structure and format of the response. So it may say, we want this many pages and this font sent to this address. And if it doesn't have that, that might be one of your questions. A lot of times there is a question and answer part of the RFP process where you can ask questions during a certain time frame. That might be one of the questions you want to ask if the structure and format is not dictated. At the same time, sometimes they leave a lot of this to your discretion. So if you're going to submit just a 3-page Word document and someone else is going to submit a very detailed presentation with brochures and things like that. You want to keep that in mind. If the structure and format is open, you want to be able to use your creativity to, again, differentiate yourself. It just depends on what the potential client is looking for at that point. So an RFP and getting into an RFP process can be pretty lengthy. So this is a good decision point for you and your business to say, okay, why do I want this business? Is it worth this process? And is it my core business? If it's just an ancillary part of your business, one, it might consume a lot of time and resources for you to submit, but also really what the corporations are looking for are people who have a specialized niche. Again, that value add is going to come in the fact that this isn't a side business for you or something you can do. It's at the core of your business, and your core capabilities and your past performance reflect that. The second really important thing is, can I deliver and meet the proposal requirements? As I've mentioned, this is just the start of a long journey, and if you really want to be able to deliver on what you say you can deliver. If you win the business and then aren't able to deliver, that's in 99% of the cases going to be worse for you and your relationship with that company than passing on an initial proposal and building up your capability and scale so that you can deliver when you do get the business. Will I be price competitive? This is something that's pretty hard to identify unless you really know your competitor's pricing. If you suspect that you are going to have to price this business extremely expensive to be able to deliver, that might be something you want to consider. If I'm not competitive, is it worth it to fill this out? Again, can you afford to win the bid? Are you going to be able to scale up, hire the staff you need? And do you have a solid understanding of that internal cost structure and what it's actually going to cost you to deliver the business? Because in all cases, there's going to be some outlay of time and resources in just like there's a cost for the business in hiring a new supplier, there's often a cost for a new supplier in winning new business. And that's particularly true if you're going to have to go through external audits and things like that. And if you win the contract award, will it compromise existing accounts or cost you an existing account? Are you going to be able to focus on your existing clients and this new client? So those are all just things to consider before filling out an RFP. The basic components of an RFP, they're going to ask for your company background, the scope of service you expect to provide to meet the objectives that they've put forward, your budget, and this is going to be probably where it gets pretty detailed. At the beginning, you can put, this is how much I expect it's going to cost. These are the basic line items, but those are things that down the line, when you get into negotiation, you really want to have a solid footing on, because those are going to be places that might be up for negotiation going forward. Your qualifications, any certifications, and they're also going to have in their RFP, they're going to have their evaluation and submission criteria. So again, are there strict definitions for doing that, or is it more open? In terms of responding to an RFP, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because I think that this is really important information for you to have that's going to distinguish your company as professional and ready to go. So include a powerful executive summary or cover page. So you want to have, it doesn't have to be a full page, but a really succinct paragraph of, I understood, demonstrating your understanding of their requirements and how you want to meet them. So an overview of your proposal, showing why you are the optimal choice for the client. It makes a good first impression and also helps you to organize your thoughts at the end of once you've written the proposal and gotten everything together. Make sure you answer all the questions. Oftentimes if if they don't have every single thing on the deadline for the RFP, they will put your proposal to the side. They may not follow up and ask you for follow-up. So you want to make sure it's all completed to the best of your abilities. You want to be succinct. Longer doesn't always equal better, especially since they're going through a competitive process. There's going to be a lot of other companies that they're considering. So you want to be the one that's succinct and gets to the point in terms of what you offer. And articulate only the points that are necessary to convey the information to the client. If you have businesses outside of the one that you're promoting, you don't want to get into those now. You want to have a laser focus on your core capabilities and your value add. Because that's really going to help the corporation see, okay, yes, this is the company that we can do business with. They understand what we're looking for and can deliver. So they're going to, once the RFP is submitted, let's say you've submitted it, you submitted your proposal, they've gone through it, they may want to initiate a contract with your company. These are all typical elements of a contract, and while it's good to have a lawyer, some sort of legal advice in looking at your contracts, you don't want to delegate all of that. You really want to make sure that you understand the elements of the contract, because it's going to contain a lot of things that are going to affect your company. So you want to know who are the involved parties, the scope of services, what level of service that you're committing to. For example, if this is a service-based business, are they expecting CEO hours to be spent on this contract, or can you hire people that can deliver it? Any shipments or delivery requirements, permits, the term of the contract, and any clauses for how the contract can be terminated. You want to see, can only they terminate the contract? Can you terminate the contract, depending on, whether it meets your needs? Any costs, fees, or taxes associated, how are those going to be handled? If there's, if you have additional costs for shipping to a specific location that they require, are they going to pay those costs? Likely you're going to be responsible for those, so you want to think about that. Payment terms. If you're expecting to be paid in 60 days, but they're going to be paying in 90 days or more, are you going to be able to meet the payroll for the project, purchase all of the inputs that you need? You want to keep those in mind. Any warranties on the products you're providing, insurance requirements, indemnification and limitation of liability, so who's at fault if something does go wrong. Your supplier personnel, so who are the personnel that are going to be taking this on, any trademarks or intellectual property, and if there are those, are you licensing those to the person, to the company that you're doing business with, or are you maintaining those? Compliance with laws, any Tier 2 requirements. So if you're doing business with a company that has goals for doing business with women, are they going to require that any inputs or products that you're buying are also bought from women? Confidentiality, and then the governing law. So if you're located in India and the company that you're doing business with is located in Europe, which is the governing law of the contract. So those are all things that you want to consider. And if there are additional parties, it's going to be even more complicated. If you have to rely on one of their suppliers that they have a relationship with to get some of the inputs that you need, then you want to make sure that the responsibilities are all laid out, and if something goes wrong with another supplier, that you're not held liable for that, or that you have at least a plan for that. So typical contracting stakeholders. Again, this is when you're going to get beyond your personal relationship, and likely you'll get beyond talking specifically about the product and the cost into these different items that we've touched on before. So definitely legal, the company's legal department is going to be involved in contracting, procurement, finance, marketing, supplier diversity, which is likely how you've gotten in if you're using your WEConnect connections, any third-party audits. So are they going, if you have a factory, do they have to go to the factory? Do they want to go on site and see what you're offering? discipline. So I guess that can mean different things, but really how is this going to be handled if anything goes wrong, risk management, and CSR. So I think this is a good demonstration of not only contracting, but also the different departments that might be buying your goods and services. So maybe you will come in through finance or marketing, but all these different departments are going to be involved in this process, which is, again, it can be lengthy, so you want to have your ducks in a row. Once you've gotten through that process, they can do the purchase approval and the award. This is when you'd resolve any outstanding issues and finalize the contract terms. Make sure you understand the contract terms. One of the biggest mistakes that a supplier, particularly if you're a smaller supplier than the customer you're doing business with, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is to not really fully understand those terms. Because you want to make sure that in terms of the insurance you need and the fees and taxes, that the contract you're signing is going to be beneficial for your company and not going to be more cost and headache than the contract is worth. So the last two things are integration and implementation, and then we'll get to supplier metrics. So this is when you need to have you, or most likely your team, in communication with the potential customer to make sure that your systems and processes integrate with those. How are they going to pay you? Can they wire you payments? Are you able to accept payments from the country where they're operating? The product and service delivery. Can you deliver to where they need you to deliver it? How are you going to monitor that? Who are you going to be in contact with to make that happen? And make sure you manage the relationship. You want there to be a collaborative tone. You want your team to feel like a team with the people that you're selling to. You both have to have a vested interest in successfully working together. And again, this is just the start of a good relationship. So you want to make sure that the team members that you have on this part of the process are committed to that just like you are. And then we talked a little bit briefly about moments of truth in terms of, do I really want to fill out this RFP? So these are interactions with your customer. That's a moment of truth you have with yourself. Well, these moments of truth are moments you have with your customer that are going to cause them to form a view of your business compared to their expectations. So you can either meet, exceed, or disappoint their expectations. So you can have a positive moment of truth or a negative moment of truth. And to be honest, like anything else, negative moments of truth carry a lot of weight with your customer. If they're buying something that they're buying from someone else and they switch to buy it from you and it gets there on time and costs less, well, then their expectations have been met, possibly exceeded, but, and so that's great, but it's not going to have as positive an impact as a negative relationship with you will have. So if they have a positive relationship with you, they'll be happy and they'll likely keep you on as a supplier. If they have a negative relationship with you, a negative moment of truth, they're not only probably not going to do business with you, but they'll probably tell other people within their company not to do business with you either. So that's, you really want to make sure that everything we've talked about up to this slide is in order for you so that you're ready to take on this process. In order to maximize those positive moments of truth, you want to set standards in your own business processes. And they should be standards not just for the corporation or the client that you're doing business with, but you want to set your standards, your minimum standards should be as high as the highest standards that your clients are setting. If that's just your normal, then everybody in your company knows what the standards are and can seek to meet them. So I think this is good advice for business, which is that a single mistake is forgivable, but a pattern of mistakes are not. So that's why it's important to, if there are issues, and there probably will be minor and or major issues when you are taking on new business. The important part is how you handle those issues. So you want to make sure that your communication is continuous and positive and demonstrates a willingness to improve. Also that you're taking corrective action to prevent any recurrence of the negative experience. So you identify the issue, determine the cause for that issue, develop a solution, and calibrate and integrate those business processes. I'd say not only that, you want to communicate that you've developed that solution to your customer. When a problem is resolved to your customer satisfaction, the customer loyalty actually increases to a higher level than before the problem existed. So issues are going to happen, but they are opportunities for you to demonstrate how you're going to handle them. And finally, once you've gotten through all this process, you're selling your goods and services, you've got a contract. When you're coming up to the end of that contract, remember there's another supplier just like you that might want to displace your company. So at that point, you want to know how you're doing against the contract requirements, and you don't want to wait until the end. You want to be constantly measuring and managing your supplier performance, and to the extent that is feasible and appropriate, communicating your achievements and results to your buyer, to your contact at the client. Again, when it's appropriate, you also might want to be looping back in the supplier diversity person to let them know how you're doing. Because again, like I said, your supplier diversity person is an advocate within that company. They can also provide introductions to different departments that you might not currently be doing business with. And especially if you are at this point an existing supplier and doing very well, it's the supplier diversity person's benefit to, in terms of meeting their goals, to get you introduced to as many people as possible. So you want to look at any quality or compliance audits, any performance rewards or penalties that will help to incentivize your team to handle any issues or just handle the project in a positive way. And then you also want to identify any opportunities to resolve issues, to streamline your productivity and by eliminating waste and inefficiencies within your system. Again, it goes back to the idea of cost savings. If in doing business with a client, you've identified even more cost savings beyond what you promised, that's going to be a great way to start and build a relationship. And suppliers that build solid relationships with their customers consistently outperform companies that don't. If you are looking at this process as a continuous relationship building, it's going to put you in a better position than people who are just looking at this as a business transaction, who aren't responsive to issues and haven't started that relationship. So some of the criteria that our corporations are going to look at, so it's something you want to be getting out ahead of and doing before them, are quality management and process control, any of your logistics and distribution. Are you offering continuous improvement and innovation? Your facility environment, your financial condition. Again, have you gotten any additional certifications since you won the business? Your price and the warranty. Those are kind of things they're going to be looking at. They're also going to be looking at intangibles, like your customer relationship and communication factors. How do you handle complaints? How's your technical assistance if you are offering something like that? When they contact you, can they get in touch with someone that can actually make decisions and handle their needs? I would say that one of the best kept secrets for the women business owners in our network is that they tend to be able to offer a very high level of oversight and quality and customer service because of the nature of their companies. One of the things that our corporations are looking for in doing business with a company that might be smaller, might have a leaner staff, is that ability to focus on them. If their project manager has an issue and can contact the CEO of the company to get a response, that's always a good thing for them, that they can get focus. Now, that's not to say that the CEO should be handling every minor issue, but if they can get someone that can handle their problem and has that decision-making capability in a fast manner, that's something that's not only nice to have, but it's going to distinguish you from the huge companies that these corporations are doing business with all the time. And finally, information sharing. Like I said, making sure that there's a feedback loop and that you're talking to people in a timely way. If there is a problem, that you're communicating it, you're getting out ahead of it, and also offering solutions. Just like when you're selling to the companies, they want to hear not only about your products and services and the pricing, but the solutions you offer. And the same thing once you're already a supplier. They want to see, oh, okay, what additional solutions can you offer me? And this is, again, particularly with service purchases, relationship-driven criteria. So the trust, the commitment, and the communication play a more significant role in measuring performance than perhaps the price or the content of what's offered. So I'm going to stop there. We went through a lot of information, and like I said, we have a recording of this, which I'll be able to provide you later on. But I do want to give you an opportunity in the chat window to ask any questions you might have at this point. So while you're thinking of any questions, I do also want to point out what we'll be doing next, what we'll be doing after this in terms of the webinars. Some of you may have taken other webinars with us. I'll be sending out a survey to anyone who registered for a webinar or participated in a webinar to get your feedback on what was most of interest with you, what would make it easier, and how we can improve for 2016. We'll be offering, we'll probably be changing up the format of the WEConnect Academy a little bit and offering different webinars for 2016. So I'd love to hear from you, particularly since you took the time to attend a webinar, what exactly you liked about it, what you would change about it, and what you'd like to see for next year. So great, thanks Maggie, thanks for joining. Maggie doesn't have any questions, and as long as you all don't have any questions, thank you very much for joining. I'm always available. My email address is lwhitehead@weconnectinternational.org if you have any questions going forward. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to see you next year at some of our webinars. Thanks.